Hello, Rebecca Kirk. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Kathy. So good to be here.
I'm so excited you're here and can't wait to hear about your journey and some tips you have for our listeners about career and having your work align more with a spiritual path.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm hoping I can share a few insights and a little bit of my journey to hopefully inspire some of your listeners.
Awesome. So, as I understand it, you were in the corporate world for about 14 years as a retail buyer. Is that correct?
Yeah, I started my journey off actually in Palm Beach in Florida. Yeah, in the retail world, buying swimwear and various other goods. And yeah, a 14-year journey that's led me to really doing a complete 180 and now working as a career coach. So I mostly help people in discovering purpose and living out that purpose, and typically people who are on a spiritual path or at least open to a spiritual path. So yeah, it's a sort of specialism that's emerged really post-pandemic. Something
Right.
that I noticed with my, the clients that were coming through who were searching for deeper meaning in life.
Right.
More fulfillment. So yeah, that's what I do now.
Love it. Well, you're on the Joyful Purpose podcast. So a lot of our listeners, I think, who are listening are interested in having more purpose in their lives. And actually, so much research shows that it is a key to helping us be happier. And there's research shows that it helps with happy longevity. So I think anytime we can find more purpose in our lives in any way, it's a win-win.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So tell us how, I think it was around 2010, you said, where you kind of had this kind of aha moment. Could you share where you were at and kind of what happened?
Yeah. So 2010, I'd reached a point in my corporate career where I really felt like a square peg in a round hole, I think is the best way of describing it. And I had a desire to step off the treadmill for a while. So I took a career break in Sydney in Australia.
Where are you located now, by the way?
I'm in Manchester in the UK.
Okay. And that's where you're from?
I'm from nearby. Yeah, I'm from the UK. Yeah.
Okay.
So
you went to Australia. And
I went to Australia. Yeah. And lived out my brother's apartment for about 5 months, right by the ocean. Beautiful, beautiful location. And it really gave me the headspace and to really discover what was truly meaningful to me. It's kind of like the eat, pray, love kind of scenario. I went there and I discovered Buddhist meditation, Kundalini yoga, of which I'm a huge fan. Highly recommend it to anybody who's looking for a deeper practice. And off the back of it, I realized I wasn't going back into the corporate world, but I wanted to use everything that I'd learned to support other people who typically small businesses, people who were looking to set up a business of their own, a product or brand related business. And I just wanted to use the skills I had in a different setting, in a different way, and off my own bat, really. So off the end of that career break, I set my own business up and I was working one-to-one, or I did do some corporate work still, but it was, it felt very different because it was my business, my practice. So yeah, I came back from there in 2011 and started working with some great, mostly creative businesses, artists, ceramicists, furniture makers, and found it a lot more fulfilling and got to use some of the skills and the experience that I had gained from the corporate world in a very different way.
Right. So it sounds like you had more of an aha moment when you really connected in solitude with yourself and kind of getting away from it all. Is that a fair way to say?
Absolutely. Yeah. What was interesting was, my life was very simple at that point. I didn't have a job. I had, my friends, and I had a couple of family members, but I didn't have many possessions at all. I was literally living a very simple life out of one bedroom in my brother's apartment. And I think that gave me the headspace to really see what was truly important. And for me, being near the ocean is a great point of connection to that spiritual side.
I love it. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I switched from being a lawyer to a life coach. So I couldn't agree more, though, in finding that time for yourself to really connect and get quiet and find out what's really important to you. What would you say to our listeners who don't have the opportunity to maybe go to Australia or take, this time just for themselves? How can they connect more to themselves without going anywhere?
One of the things I recommend with my clients in my coaching practice is to develop a daily spiritual practice. And by that, I mean, simply, it could be 5 minutes of meditation. It could be a 10-minute walk out in nature. It could just be the practice of mindfulness, just going about your everyday life. So I think there are ways of integrating it into day-to-day life. I think finding a little space to practice could be a corner of a room. It could be a little table that you set up, a little kind of altar, and just putting it in your diary, just putting it out there. This is important time, and creating a bit of a boundary around it. I work with a lot of people who obviously have family pressures and lots of demands put on them. But I think being able to really take ownership of that time and just communicating how important this is and recognizing the knock-on effect on other people when you are able to connect within. It's not a selfish act, which I think sometimes clients come to me feeling it's quite selfish to want to have this time to connect. And I truly believe that it's the oxygen mask first analogy that you get when you step on an airplane. When we feel grounded and connected within, we can be of greater service to the people around us.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the opposite. It's not selfish. It's actually the best way, not only to take care of yourself, but to show up with great energy for everyone around you.
Yeah.
Because when we don't take that time, right, we're giving them our stuff.
Yep. It's very easy to transmit that, isn't it? So
yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like you're saying, like, to make it a ritual every day to find quiet time, which I'm so in agreement with. That's really, really powerful. What would you say also, just in terms of spirituality, how do you define it? Because I know many of our listeners might feel spirituality, but not religious. Some certainly are. But how do you describe spirituality for yourself?
For me, it's a connection to a deeper, truer identity. So, I mean, my version of spirituality, it's not religious based. I welcome anybody who has religious views. But for me, it's what the essence of that religion is about, which is realizing that we are a divine being, that we are connected to the consciousness, the universe, whatever language you choose to use it. And I think for me, spirituality is about recognizing and honoring that deeper identity and how connected we all are to the universe, to that higher force, that higher presence. That's how I would explain it.
So how does one connect more to their spirituality and align it with their career?
So there's a number of different ways. I mean, I think we've talked about, having headspace, having time to practice, time to connect, be that out in nature, be that through meditation. I think just simple things such as, lighting a candle, just seeing reflected back to you light, and just just even being open to the possibility that that light is also within you. I find it a very powerful symbol. I mean, prayer is, again, not necessarily in a religious context, but the idea of communicating with that higher force can create connection. I think one thing I'd like to kind of share is, and I've certainly seen this with my life and with many of my clients, is that the need for solutions, the need for greater meaning, greater purpose, the challenge that life presents us with can become a catalyst for you to go deeper in, to find that true self, that connection. It's a portal in. And that's really been a driving force behind me bringing spirituality into my coaching practice, because I believe we can use it. It's a kind of a symbiotic relationship. Your spirituality can support you with your career, but equally your career and the sort of lack of purpose that you might be feeling, or the challenges that you might have, they kind of almost force you into discovering that deeper meaning to life, that guidance and whatever you want to call it that's out there.
Yes. So you're saying too, the challenges in your life can also serve as a portal for helping you connect more on a spiritual basis, and also helping you lead you to your next steps. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And, intuition, for example, I think is a hugely powerful tool that we all have at our disposal. And I see this as spiritual. For me, it's a way that our higher self or the universe communicates to us. And the guidance that I believe we need, or we're looking for, let's say on our career path, or if you're looking to start a business or whatever it is, the guidance and that inner knowing is there. It's there. And I think it's learning to listen to it, recognizing it is there. You have this tool at your disposal, but learning to listen to it, and then learning to trust it, to actually act on it.
Yes.
So for me, that is a part of the sort of spiritual approach also.
So what would you say to someone who wants more spirituality, or wants to be more aligned in their work and in their life, but they feel also very pressured to get it, to change it, to do something different? Because I know I was there as a lawyer for a long time. I have my own thoughts on this, but I'm curious as to what would you just say to someone who really wants to do something different, be more aligned. They don't know where to start, and yet they also have this urge to do it, and so that's causing more stress. What would you say to that person?
I think one of the most important parts of this journey, and I do see it as a journey, I think that's the first thing to say, is that we're not looking at a quick fix here. If you want to find something which is sustainable and deeply profound in terms of a career change, I think to see it as a process, as a journey. And for me, the start of that journey is to try and relax into it. When we're making choices and decisions from a very heightened emotional state, I believe we're making them possibly out of alignment with what is ultimately going to be fulfilling and meaningful. So I think just being able to ground and to connect and to trust in your own path. I believe we all have a unique path, and when we in trust in that, I think we have a higher vibration. We put ourselves in a more conducive state to attracting the people, the opportunities that we need to move us forward. And conversely, when we're grasping, for example, we're grasping. So, I get clients that come to me and they're, I'm just, looking on this job website and that job, I'm applying for this job and that job. And there is a sense of grasping, and it's quite low vibration. And I totally get why they might be doing that, because there is a sense of urgency, but that urgency, I believe, is very counterproductive to this process. So I think learning to trust in your own path, to accept perhaps what's come before you, and to stop comparing. I think one thing I noticed is a lot of comparison. Well, so-and-so, she came straight out of college and she, she went straight into, to be a lawyer or an accountant, whatever it is. In my experience, that's actually more rare. But I think learning to trust in your own unique path and in what a class is divine timing. This idea that, that the universe has a schedule for you, which is unique, which, things will unfold at the right time and in the right way. That's not to say that, we don't have to play our part in that, but the energy behind it is very different than when we're trying to hustle and trying to make things happen.
Right. It's kind of the opposite, especially for high achieving people who like to get things done, like to check off things off the checklist. It's a little counterintuitive that you kind of have to relax into how you're being guided to find your next steps. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And it does feel counterintuitive. I do hear this a lot. But when I hear that, I will challenge a client and say, well, how's it working out for you to carry on with the same pattern?
Yes.
And if you're looking to make a real step change, it requires kind of, maybe going slightly against the grain, giving it a go.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I love how you say grasping for clarity is counterproductive. That's a great statement.
And I believe that clarity, true clarity, really only emerges from an uncluttered mind. So we're not, overthinking is a very common thing as well. I mean, I've been there, whatever I'm talking about here, it comes from a place of experience personally as well as with clients. But I think when we are able to kind of create that headspace, the answers start to emerge.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But again, it's not what we're taught conventionally, Kathy, in society, is it? Or certainly in certain workplaces, in corporate environments that people may be coming out of, we're taught to constantly be in doing mode.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Yes. The hustle culture is alive and well. And the hustle culture is often counterproductive to even being productive at times.
Yeah, I think being able to kind of drop below the doing mode into the being mode, which is what things like meditation, getting it out into nature, connects you with your being.
Yes.
And that's where the deep, true answers, I believe, can come from.
Yes. And I think it's also inspiring people that taking that time, more of the being mode, actually helps you in every other way in your career, being more productive or whatever it is, being more present. Actually, it's a win-win. It's not wasted time. And I think, to me, that's a message that people really need to hear more of. What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. If I could start a movement, Kathy, of some sort, I think it would be around that and just the realization of where everything stems from. So our creativity stems from that being mode. And again, I'm talking about this in the deeper, I suppose, spiritual sense of recognizing the source of creativity, of abundance, of ideas, which comes from that deeper place, which the being mode will allow us to connect with. But we're taught this.
Exactly. It's not necessarily sitting at your desk looking at the computer. You can have the ahas in a yoga class or walking in the woods.
Yeah, very often do in the yoga class. And then you'd start going into doing mode because you're thinking about the ideas that have come up. So then you have to pull yourself back. But yeah.
Exactly. What suggestions do you have for people who want to align more with their purpose opposed to finding their purpose?
So finding your purpose, to me, implies that you are looking for it in the external sense. You're going out there and looking for it. I believe that everything that we need is already within us. And it's about bringing outer circumstances into resonance with the inner circumstances, the inner world. And that's what I mean by aligning. So
could you give some examples of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I talk about aligning, it's really about sort of connecting with that true deep identity. So, for example, and these are some of the areas I work with clients on. So, understanding what your passions are, what you feel called to do, the things kind of underneath the surface, if you like, but, your gifts, your talents, the things that are innate to you within, maybe forgotten parts of you. Your values, the things that are truly motivating and important to you. So, quite a lot of clients come to me wanting to make a difference in the world, make a greater impact, or to bring their creativity out into the world. And, certain environments have maybe just dumbed that down quite a bit. So that creativity has been there all along. That desire to make a difference has been there all along, or maybe to work with animals or whatever it is already there within that passion, that calling, that creativity. So it's then once you've discovered that or remembered those parts, those lost parts of yourself, you can then align your outer circumstances with those inner factors, those things that are important to you.
So if somebody's like a lawyer or a business person, they're super busy, but they love to paint, what would you tell them?
Well, I would say, first of all, is to just get time in the diary to honor that passion. And it doesn't mean to say that your next move is to become an artist, but what it does do, it puts you into that joyful state. And that joyful state will affect your energy, your vibration, and again, what you're able to attract to you. And it's saying, this is important to me. It's almost a form of self-care, really.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. It's a win-win, because I so believe when we follow our joy, it leads us more to purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we do it in small ways, what I hear from a lot of people is like, well, yeah, I love to do that, but I could never make a living out of it. I love to organize closets. I could never make a living out of it. All these things. And I love to challenge people on that. It's not automatic, right? You have to do the footwork. But when you start small and just start doing more of what you love, you'd be surprised what opportunities start popping up.
Yeah. And I think, as you said there, you challenge people on that. And I do also. I think quite often we can have limiting beliefs and thought patterns, conditioning that makes us automatically think, well, I couldn't become a successful artist. I couldn't make a living out of something that I'm passionate about or out of my creativity. And I think it's important as part of this kind of process. You are challenged and you challenge yourself and you uproot those beliefs and you start to work and reframe them.
100%, right? That's why I love working around mindset so much, because, right, if we have the belief that's not possible or I can't, guess what? We stay stuck, right?
Yeah.
And it's so important to challenge those beliefs, especially if you have a passion behind it.
Yeah. And I think it can also relate even parts of us that need to heal. It can go that deep. Something that I hear quite a lot is, I'm not worth it or I don't deserve it. And I think some of this can be deeply triggering work, but equally, I think when we open up to healing those buried parts of us, the transformation can be massive as a result.
Beautiful. And we all need healing, I believe. We all do. I know for me, I needed a lot of healing in my life. And the more I feel like I'm healed, I'm like, oh, but I still got this piece. Like there's always something else. And it's part of a journey, but it's awesome too.
Yeah, I believe it's part of our human journey. We are here to experience a whole range of things and challenges. But for me, this is where the sort of spiritual side can really support us. It can provide that kind of safe harbor, if you like, to come back to. When the outer circumstances of life are challenging, we have this place to retreat to, be that through meditation or, like I say, getting out into nature.
How does the ego get in the way of aligning with your true path in life?
Well, the ego, the way I see it, is it's in a nutshell, it's the fear-based behaviors that need to, for example, not wanting to make a career change because you feel, people would think it's silly. So say you've decided to jump off the path of being a lawyer and become an artist. Maybe you feel, oh, what are people going to say? That is the ego, the concern over what others think. The imposter syndrome. Well, could I really do that? Am I good enough to do that? That's ego. Even I would say staying in a job which perhaps has a certain status attached to it. This is something I do hear sometimes, that going to be, let's say, a gardener or a chef or whatever it is, perhaps doesn't have the same kudos, and that can hold people back. Well, I like to be seen as a lawyer or a teacher or whatever it is, and again, deriving a sense of identity from something like that can hold people back. So I think anything that's really fear-based, the inner critic as well, that voice in the head that's there, I think that is just a way that the ego self communicates to us. So that can be very loud, I think, when we're looking to make a change of some sort or set up a business. Who do you think you are? I mean, I've been through it, Kathy. I mean, I've worked through it. The fact that I'm on this show with you, I think, is perhaps a demonstration I have started to work through it, but I've been there. I couldn't possibly go on that. What have I got to say? And
I think we all, especially women, unfortunately, have that imposter syndrome voice. Who am I? Who am I to say this? Especially when we're making a change to something that, is new. Especially then, right? I think you can certainly, if you do something long enough, you can own the confidence of like, yes, I'm pretty good at this because I've done it a long time. I get it. But when we're making a shift, it's like all of a sudden, all of those ego driven thoughts, like I'm not enough, I don't have the right qualifications, or who am I, start to come out. And that's where I think you're saying that's where if you align more with your spirit and purpose, it can help you move beyond that. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. When I look back on my days in the corporate world, I wouldn't say I was particularly confident. I suffered from imposter syndrome. Since I changed my career, I've reached a whole new level of confidence because of the sense of purpose that I have.
Yes.
I feel so very driven. Even if I have a book coming out, that is really a result of me connecting with my purpose.
Yes.
And I feel very empowered as a result. Whereas before, I wasn't putting myself forward for promotion. I held back in meetings. I wasn't confident in presentations. And I do wonder if I could turn back time and I really felt connected to what I was doing, would that innate confidence have sort of come through in the way that it has for me recently?
I love it. I couldn't agree more. I feel the same way in terms of the work I do. It's the same idea, right? Like putting myself out there, even doing this podcast, like years ago, I'd be like, oh my God, I couldn't do that. And now I do feel like purpose driven. Like, no, I think more people should have more joy in their life to find their purpose because our world is so much different. And so when I focus on that, then putting myself out there is like, okay, I don't care what you think. I'm just doing it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, there's almost been a sort of a force. And this is again where my spirituality comes into it. I feel very called to do this work. It's
beautiful.
Kind of almost an out of body experience that it's just happening. I'm just riding this wave. And I'm trying to trust that, yes, that,
I love
the words
it.
will come out, whatever it is, the conversation will flow. I think trust is a very powerful word in this context.
Beautiful. You can feel it. So tell us about your upcoming book. You Are Here for a Reason. Love the title.
Yeah, well, I've always felt for many years like I had a book in me. And so it was about 18 months ago. And I remember going to bed one Sunday night and I just said to my partner, I said, I'm starting my book tomorrow. It literally it was a light bulb moment. It just came to me. And the next day I did a draft front cover. I found the software to get my whole outline out there. It was hugely inspired, but the topic is very much kind of what I've been talking about. It's about finding purpose or aligning with your purpose, awakening your career. And it really is about what I go through with my one-to-one clients. It's about trying to bring more accessibility to the coaching ideas that I present. And, not everybody can afford coaching. I know that. And so this is a way of enabling other people, to access those tools, those theories and things. But it's a practical and it's a spiritual guide to helping people align with a purpose, awaken their career. It's been a joy to write it. It's not always been easy. The writing process is challenging. It's required a lot of discipline, but I feel very privileged to have been able to do something that's been wanting to come out for a long time. And I appreciate not everybody has that opportunity. And there's been a sense of purpose behind me writing the book on purpose.
Beautiful. And when does it come out?
So it comes out on September 23rd. So it's to coincide with autumn equinox. I believe that the energy of seasonal change is very powerful. So yeah, it's coinciding then. Yeah. So hopefully it will help people get to the place of fulfillment and purpose that I'm at. That's, if it helps one person, I would be thrilled, Kathy.
Beautiful. Well, I'm going to urge our listeners to get the book before it comes out, because that will help boost sales, right? And when you boost sales, that helps get the word out more. And I love promoting anything that helps people have more joy and purpose in their life. So
brilliant. Yeah.
A lot of times, and I know I dealt this personally, and I deal with this quite a bit with my clients as well, is purpose can feel so heavy at times. And so like, oh my God, what's my purpose? And it just feels like a little overwhelming at times. I know it did for me. And it's like exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do when we're trying to get more aligned, when we're feeling more stressed and like, I have to find purpose. So what would you tell people who are feeling, yes, I want to have purpose, but I don't know what, and it just feels overwhelming? What would you tell people?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there is maybe a sense that purpose needs to be on quite a grand scale for many people. Stopping climate change, big things that can feel overwhelming. But what I would say is to start small. I believe there are everyday opportunities to live our purpose. And I use quite a broad definition of purpose in my book. There's 3 aspects to purpose that I bring in, which, gives people everyday opportunities to bring, for example, more compassion, bring more light into the world. And boy, does it need it at the moment. This could be a very simple thing, like helping a friend out who's in need. It could be picking some litter off the street when you're on your dog walk. Just simple things to connect you with a sense of purpose on a much deeper, broader level. And that can open you up to other opportunities and get you into that into the energetic flow of something much kind of bigger in terms of your career.
Yes.
So that's what I would suggest doing if there is a sense of overwhelm. It's not just about career purpose for me. It's about a broader definition. What's
your definition of purpose? The 3 definitions, or how would you define it?
I see a higher purpose initially, which is the spiritual connection to see ourselves, our deeper identity as a divine being. That's what I see as our higher purpose. Our life purpose I see as being almost a kind of a vessel or an instrument of the universe to bring that light into the world in whatever way possible. Again, daily opportunities. And then the career purpose is about connecting with that thing that we're called to do. And it's about recognizing our gifts, our talents to enable us to live out that calling.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So gifts are, the idea of having a gift, the universe having presented us with something to carry out our calling, I believe is, again,
I love it.
See that deeper sense of meaning behind it.
Yes. One of my favorite quotes is Howard Thurman quote that says, don't ask what the world needs, ask what lights you up, because the world needs more people who are lit up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I may have botched the quote exactly, but essentially, I don't have it in front of me, but essentially, right? It's like, what lights you up, and do more of that. And that actually does serve a purpose.
Yeah. And I think, just coming back to the idea of when you're in that joyful state, you are in your higher vibration and other people will feel it, just from doing something joyful. Yes.
And I always like to encourage people when they're struggling with a career change or whatever it is, how can you get happier right now in your current situation, whether it's a relationship change or anything, so that you can really distinguish, is it what it is you're not enjoying about your work, relationship, or whatever? How can you get happier right now? I think that's very powerful. It doesn't mean you don't make a change, of course, but if you can start doing some things to bring more joy to yourself right now, that's going to help everything, including taking next steps to new beginnings.
Absolutely. And I think just being present.
Yes.
It's kind of it's an oxymoron in a way, in that when we have plans, obviously we're looking at some point in the future, but it takes us away from our power, which is in this present moment. So I think doing things which can keep us present.
Yes.
Whilst we've got one eye on where we're headed, I think it's useful to try and get that balance if we can.
Yes. Be here now and plan the future, but But be here, enjoy it. It sounds cheesy, but it's true. It's all that's guaranteed is this moment.
Yeah, I think it is the most profound wisdom there is, that, being present, being mindful. But it's a daily reminder. And I think that's the same for everybody on the planet.
It's not only a daily reminder, it's a daily practice of really like, how do you ground in the moment? How do you connect to yourself and, really be here now, especially when you're with others? It's a practice. It's a harder practice if you didn't grow up that way.
Yeah, but I guess there's the opportunity as well, isn't it, for growth?
Exactly. Well, do you have any other tips or, wisdom to share about people who want more of a spiritual path, even if it's not in their career? Let's say they're like, I'm good with my career, I like it, but I do want to be more aligned in having more purpose in my life every day.
I think it's about finding what works for you. I mean, for me, nature, I've mentioned this a few times, but I think the simple practice of getting out into nature and just being still in nature and sensing the presence that is there in nature and the abundance. I mean, especially summertime over here, everything's in bloom. I think that can be quite a powerful practice. But meditation, it's an interesting practice in that many people feel they're doing it wrong or that it's very challenging. But I think it's just simply giving your mind a rest.
Right. And also like really telling people it's okay if your mind doesn't rest, but you're trying it, because really what we want to do in meditation is to see that we're the watcher. We are not all of the thoughts that are constantly going through our heads. And people think, oh, meditation is about stopping your thoughts. It is ultimately, I think, but for most of us, myself included, they don't just stop. It's about finding that space.
Yeah. I mean, little tools and things such as, connecting with your breath, connecting with your senses. I mean, I'm very often holding a crystal or using an essential oil. So just bringing you back to this moment, to 3 deep breaths of an essential oil can just get you out of your head.
Yes. Yes. Great. Yeah, that's great tips. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners, or a question I didn't ask that you want to share some information about?
I'd just like to get across, I suppose, the sense of possibility. Anybody who is looking to make a career change, anybody who is looking to find that deeper sense of purpose, that it is entirely possible, and just how much that belief, how far that can take you. And like I said, to really trust in your own path and to see any challenges that you have right now as a portal, a way in, a catalyst to connecting more deeply with that true self. So I really wish everybody well in whatever stage they are at in their path.
What I hear you say is that there's a possibility for everyone, no matter where they're at, to have more purpose in their life.
100%. Yeah.
Yes. I love it. I couldn't agree more. What would your healthy 95 happy-year-old self tell you today?
This is interesting because this is a question I actually ask my clients, and now I'm having it reversed around. Just to enjoy the ride. There's nothing else that you need, just to enjoy the ride and to just trust.
And what would you tell your younger self, your 15-year-old self?
I think to really just embrace your own path. It's interesting, the Football World Cup is on at the moment, the Women's Soccer World Cup. And I remember as a young girl really wanting to play, and it wasn't a thing, especially in the UK. And you can question yourself, and I wouldn't do that now. I would tell her, just embrace all those parts of you that might be a bit different from other people.
I love it. Embrace it. Celebrate it.
Celebrate.
And own it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Please tell all your listeners everything about where we can find you and anything else, and I'll include it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, so my website is rebeccakirk.co.uk, and there's some free resources on there. There's a free career coaching webinar, there's a career change quiz, there's information about my book, there's pre-order link on there. So that's the best way of finding me online. I have a community on there as well through my mailing list and all the usual social channels. So Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So yeah, it'd be great to connect with anybody who this has resonated with. I'd love to connect with them.
Oh, fabulous. And I will go and pre-order that book. And I encourage the listeners to pre-order Rebecca's book as well, to help her get her message out in the world that I think everyone needs to hear.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.